The morning haze hung low over the sprawling military training camp, the kind of chill that bit just enough to sharpen senses without numbing them. Rows of recruits stood at attention, their faces taut with a mixture of anticipation and dread, the first day of basic training already setting the tone. Amid the sea of khaki uniforms, Emma Carter slipped quietly through the ranks, her movements unobtrusive, almost ghost-like. She wasn't the type to draw attention, and that was exactly how she wanted it. From the outside, Emma was the picture of ordinariness. Her hair, pulled back into a tight bun, framed a face that bore no indication of the fire burning beneath. Her eyes, steady and calm, scanned the scene without revealing a hint of the turmoil inside. She carried a worn duffel bag slung over one shoulder, its faded canvas a stark contrast to the polished gear of the others. This was her first day, and already the camp buzzed with whispers and sideways glances directed her way. Sergeant Blake's voice cut through the morning air like a whip cracking. "Look who's trying to blend in," he sneered, stepping from the shadow of the barracks with a crooked grin. His eyes locked onto Emma, sizing her up with palpable disdain. Behind him, Corporal Davis chuckled, his laughter dripping with mockery. "What are you doing here, Carter? Lost or just slow?" Emma said nothing. She didn't flinch, didn't raise her gaze to meet theirs. The other recruits nearby snickered, their jabs fueled by Blake and Davis's open hostility. They saw her as an easy target, a quiet girl with no obvious skills, no loud confidence to shield her from ridicule. But Emma's silence was a shield of its own, a quiet fortress built from years of discipline and self-control. Blake stepped closer, his tone low but venomous. "You don't belong here. This isn't some Sunday picnic. You'll break before the week's out." His words were meant to provoke, to crack her composure, but Emma remained unmoved, her expression unreadable. The camp itself was a sprawling labyrinth of concrete, metal and raw earth. Barracks lined with steel windows, obstacle courses carved into the landscape, and the distant thud of boots on gravel echoed between the buildings. The scent of damp earth mixed with the sharp tang of gun oil and sweat. This place was built to forge soldiers, to strip away weakness and build strength. Emma felt the weight of it all but carried it with the ease of someone who had already faced far worse. Nearby, a cluster of recruits gathered around Sergeant Blake, their faces alight with the thrill of bullying. Corporal Davis played the part of the eager accomplice, egging Blake on as he singled Emma out again. "Hey Carter, why don't you go back to wherever you came from? Maybe the library? You look like you'd rather read than run." The words were meant to sting, but Emma's resolve was solid. She met their taunts with a quiet dignity, refusing to give them the satisfaction of a reaction. The other recruits began to notice, their laughter fading into uncertain glances. It was clear Emma was not the usual timid recruit they could easily dismiss. As the morning drill whistle blew, the camp shifted into motion. Recruits moved swiftly toward their assigned tasks, the cacophony of shouted orders and pounding feet filling the air. Emma fell into formation, her steps measured and precise. Despite the nervousness gnawing at her, she maintained an air of calm, her breathing steady as ever. Sergeant Blake barked orders, his voice sharp and unforgiving. "Double time. Let's see what you're made of, Carter." His words were more challenge than command, meant to push her to the edge. Emma answered with nothing more than a slight increase in pace, her movements efficient, purposeful. Throughout the exercises, Emma remained a shadow at the edges of the group, neither the fastest nor the loudest, but always present. She didn't seek attention, yet her quiet determination was impossible to ignore. The other recruits glanced at her with growing curiosity, some with skepticism, others with a grudging respect beginning to take root. Corporal Davis tried once more to undermine her during a relay run, blocking her path with a smug grin. "Watch out, slowpoke," he taunted, but Emma sidestepped smoothly, her footing sure, and continued on without breaking stride. The moment was brief but telling, a silent message that she would not be easily deterred. In the mess hall, the atmosphere was no kinder. Emma sat alone at a corner table, carefully unpacking the modest meal she had brought. The chatter around her was loud, punctuated with jokes and boasts, none of which included her. A few recruits exchanged glances, whispering about the new girl who refused to fold under pressure. Sergeant Blake prowled nearby, his eyes scanning the room for any sign of weakness. He noticed Emma's solitary posture and smirked, clearly viewing her isolation as confirmation of his predictions. Yet even then, Emma's composure never faltered. She ate quietly, the faintest hint of a smile playing at her lips. The day pressed on with relentless drills, marching, target practice, and classroom instruction. Emma absorbed every lesson with intense focus, her mind sharp and alert. She asked no questions, yet her attentive silence spoke volumes. The instructors noted her presence, some with curiosity, others with cautious approval. As dusk settled over the camp, the recruits gathered in the main courtyard for debriefing. Commander Hayes, a stern figure whose gaze seemed to pierce through the bravado of even the most confident soldiers, addressed the group. His eyes briefly flicked to Emma, a subtle acknowledgement that did not go unnoticed. Basic training is not for the faint of heart, Hayes intoned. It will break you down and build you back stronger. Some of you will rise. Others will fall. His voice held weight, and the recruits shifted uneasily, aware that the real trial was only just beginning. Emma stood still, a calm presence amid the restless energy. She had endured the first day's barrage of mockery and challenges without faltering. The others might see her as an outsider, an easy mark, but beneath the quiet exterior lay a resolve forged by hardship and discipline. As the recruits were dismissed to their quarters, Sergeant Blake shot one last glare in Emma's direction. "This isn't over, Carter," he muttered under his breath, but Emma's steady gaze met his with unspoken defiance. The night in the barracks was a stark contrast to the day's chaos. Dim lights flickered as recruits settled in, the murmur of whispered conversations fading into silence. Emma lay awake, thoughts turning over the day's events. The ridicule, the challenges, the silent stares. All pieces of a puzzle she was determined to solve. She knew this was just the beginning. The camp was a crucible, and she intended to emerge from it unbroken. The quiet recruit had made her entrance, but the story was far from over. The dawn broke with a cold gray light that filtered through the narrow windows of the barracks, casting long shadows across the bunk beds. Emma Carter rose quietly, the faint scrape of her boots against the concrete floor barely audible amid the early stirrings of the camp. Her movements were deliberate, the kind of practiced ease that came from years of discipline far beyond what most recruits could claim. Outside, the camp was already alive with noise, the sharp bark of commands, the clatter of gear, and the ever-present hum of restless energy. Emma's reflection in the scratched mirror above the washbasin showed a face untouched by vanity but marked by quiet resolve. There were no embellishments, no signs of pretense. Just a plain expression framed by unremarkable brown hair pulled back tightly, eyes steady and unyielding. Her background was as modest as her appearance suggested. Born in a small town where opportunities were scarce and expectations limited, Emma had learned early to rely on herself. Her parents worked long hours, and she had taken on odd jobs to support her younger siblings. There were no silver spoons or privileged connections, just grit and determination. She had come to the training camp not with the swagger of confidence but with the weight of necessity. Sergeant Blake and Corporal Davis, the duo who had made it their mission to undermine her on day one, wasted no time in continuing their campaign. Blake's sneer was a constant presence as he prowled the grounds like a predator surveying easy prey. "Still hanging around, Carter? Thought you'd have crawled back home by now," he taunted during morning drills, his voice dripping with disdain. Davis joined in, his smirk widening. "Yeah, what's the matter? Can't keep up? Maybe you should stick to cleaning the latrines." Their words weren't loud, but the sharpness cut through the murmur of the other recruits. The group around them laughed, encouraged by the leader's cruelty. But Emma remained unshaken. Her silence was not weakness. It was armor. She absorbed the insults, let them wash over her like rain. There was a simmering strength beneath her calm exterior, a reservoir of endurance they could neither see nor comprehend. She knew better than to waste energy on retaliation. Instead, she focused on the tasks at hand. Commander Hayes had yet to make his presence fully known in the daily grind, but his shadow loomed large. A man of few words and commanding presence, he observed the recruits with a discerning eye, evaluating not just their physical performance but their character. Emma caught glimpses of him during formations, his gaze brief but piercing, as if trying to read the story beneath the surface. The contrast between Emma and the loud, brash recruits was stark. While others flaunted their bravado, shouting commands or boasting of past exploits, Emma's demeanor was steady and composed. She listened more than she spoke, watched more than she acted, and in doing so she carved a space for herself that was both separate and unassailable. During a brief break near the obstacle course, Emma stood apart from the noisy clusters, wiping sweat from her brow with a ragged sleeve. Nearby, Blake and Davis exchanged sarcastic remarks, their voices laced with scorn. "You really think that quiet act's going to get you anywhere here?" Blake sneered. "This place chews up weaklings like you." Emma met his gaze evenly, her lips pressed into a thin line. No answer came, but the silence spoke volumes. The others around them noticed the dynamic shifting imperceptibly. It was clear she was not simply another recruit to be dismissed. The instructors began to take note as well. Lieutenant Ramirez, a veteran with a reputation for fairness, observed Emma during the morning's tactical briefing. She saw a recruit who absorbed every detail, whose questions were few but precise. Ramirez exchanged a glance with an assistant, a flicker of approval passing between them. Amidst the relentless physical demands, marches, drills, and endurance tests, Emma's steady presence was a quiet anomaly. She wasn't the fastest nor the loudest, but her consistency was undeniable. When others faltered or lost focus, Emma pressed on, her breathing controlled, movements fluid and efficient. Lunch brought no respite from the undercurrent of judgment. Emma ate alone again, her meal plain but nourishing. The mess hall buzzed with the chatter of recruits comparing notes, bragging, and sometimes whispering about the newcomer who refused to engage. A few glanced her way, curiosity mingling with skepticism. Sergeant Blake took the opportunity to approach, sliding onto the bench across from her with a smirk. "You know, Carter, it's not just about showing up. You gotta have the guts to stand out here." His tone was taunting, but there was a hint of challenge beneath it. Emma looked up briefly, her gaze unwavering. "I'm not here to stand out," she replied evenly. "I'm here to get through." The simplicity of her answer threw him off for a moment, but he recovered quickly, laughing. "Suit yourself. Just don't get in our way." The afternoon drills were no kinder. Corporal Davis tried to trip her during a formation march, a subtle shove meant to provoke. Emma stumbled but caught herself, her balance steady. She didn't retaliate, didn't give him the satisfaction of a reaction. The other recruits noticed, whispers spreading quietly. "Who is this girl who won't break?" Behind the scenes, Commander Hayes was beginning to connect the dots. Emma's quiet determination, her refusal to be rattled by bullying, her steady performance, all stood in contrast to the more vocal but less consistent recruits. He made a mental note to keep an eye on her, intrigued by the enigma she presented. As the day wore on, the camp's atmosphere remained tense. The hierarchy among the recruits was clear, the loud and confident ruled by intimidation, while the quiet and steady were relegated to the margins. Emma's presence challenged that order, unsettling those who thrived on dominance. Back in the barracks that evening, Emma sat on her bunk, peeling off the day's dirt and sweat. Her thoughts drifted briefly to her family, the small sacrifices that had brought her here. The weight of expectation was heavy, but it was a burden she bore willingly. Her reflection in the mirror caught her attention once more. The plainness of her appearance belied the storm of resolve within. Here, in this crucible of discipline and endurance, Emma Carter was forging a new identity, not one shaped by others' judgments, but by her own unyielding will. Outside, the camp settled into uneasy quiet, but Emma's mind remained alert. The road ahead was long and fraught with challenges, and the mockery of Sergeant Blake and Corporal Davis was only the beginning. Yet, beneath the surface, a quiet confidence was taking root, one that would soon prove impossible to ignore. The morning sun cast sharp angles across the training ground as the recruits lined up for the day's most grueling challenge yet, the obstacle course. The air was thick with anticipation and exhaustion, a mix that sharpened nerves and tested resolve. Sergeant Blake paced along the edge, his eyes gleaming with the promise of another chance to break the quiet recruit he had set his sights on. Emma Carter stood at the starting line, her stance relaxed but focused. Around her, the other trainees buzzed with nervous energy, some stretching, others muttering last-minute boasts. The course ahead was brutal. A twisted gauntlet of ropes, walls, mud pits, and narrow beams designed to expose weakness and reward grit. "Ready," Blake barked, voice cutting through the morning chill. "Go." The pack surged forward, boots pounding against dirt and gravel. Emma's pace was steady, measured. Not the fastest but relentless. She moved with a grace that belied the weight of her pack and the biting cold in the air. Where others faltered, slipping on muddy banks or hesitating at towering walls, Emma found her rhythm, flowing through each obstacle with quiet determination. Blake's mocking voice trailed behind her. "Come on, Carter. Is that all you've got?" Corporal Davis was not far behind, his smirk fading as Emma crept ahead. In a calculated move, he lunged during a narrow balance beam crossing, attempting to unsettle her footing. The sudden shove was subtle but enough to throw many off balance. Emma's boots wavered momentarily, but her core steadied her instantly. With a fluid motion, she recovered and pressed on, leaving Davis momentarily stunned. The crowd of recruits watching from the sidelines began to murmur. Whispers filled the air, mixing surprise with growing respect. Emma's quiet endurance was no longer a curiosity, it was becoming a force. Halfway through the course, the mud pit awaited. A thick, sucking mire that tested both strength and will. Many plunged in with hesitation, their movements sluggish as they fought the sticky earth. Emma stepped in deliberately, arms steady, muscles engaged. She pushed through methodically, refusing to waste energy on unnecessary struggle. Each step was precise, her breathing controlled. At the far edge of the pit, Blake waited, his eyes narrowed. "You're slow, Carter. Slow kills you here." Emma didn't respond. Instead, she vaulted over the next wall with practiced ease, her fingers gripping the rough surface as she hoisted herself up. The other recruits struggled, some needing multiple attempts, their frustration mounting. Emma's calm ascent was a stark contrast, drawing the eyes of instructors observing nearby. Lieutenant Ramirez's gaze lingered on Emma, noting her technique and composure. She exchanged a brief nod with a fellow instructor, signaling approval. This was no ordinary recruit. The final stretch approached. A test of speed and precision requiring disassembly and reassembly of a standard-issue rifle under time pressure. The recruits scrambled to their stations, hands fumbling as the clock ticked down. Emma approached hers with deliberate calm. Her fingers moved confidently, breaking down the weapon with practiced efficiency. The assembled crowd grew quiet, watching the quiet recruit transform under pressure. Where others struggled with nerves, Emma's hands were steady, assembling the rifle with mechanical precision. The timer beeped, and Emma's weapon was ready moments before the deadline. A ripple of astonishment passed through the onlookers. Blake's jaw tightened, his earlier taunts replaced by grudging acknowledgement. Davis frowned, his smirk wiped clean by Emma's flawless performance. "Not bad," Lieutenant Ramirez remarked aloud, catching the attention of the group. "Carter, report to me after this." The rest of the day unfolded with similar tests, marches, drills, and classroom instruction, but Emma's quiet display during the obstacle course had shifted the atmosphere. Fellow recruits eyed her differently, some with newfound respect, others with reluctant curiosity. During a brief break, Blake approached again, this time his tone less mocking, more wary. "You've got endurance, I'll give you that. But don't think it makes you one of us." Emma met his gaze evenly. "I'm not trying to be one of you. I'm just here to finish." His scowl deepened, but he said no more. The message was clear. She was no longer an easy target. In the evening, as the recruits gathered for marksmanship training, Emma's focus remained unshaken. The rifle felt like an extension of her, her aim steady and precise. Each shot found its mark with quiet consistency, drawing attention from instructors and peers alike. Whispers began to circulate. Who was this quiet recruit with the steady hands and unyielding will? Where did she come from? What hidden strength lay beneath her unassuming exterior? Amid the shifting tides of perception, Emma remained composed. She said little, letting her actions speak. The trials of the day had tested her body and mind, but she emerged unbroken. A silent testament to resilience. As night fell over the camp, the barracks were alive with murmurs and speculation. Emma sat alone, methodically cleaning her gear, the day's grime washed away by practiced hands. Outside, the world was quiet, but inside, the wheels of change had begun to turn. Sergeant Blake and Corporal Davis exchanged uneasy glances, their earlier certainty shaken by Emma's unyielding performance. The quiet recruit was no longer invisible, no longer dismissed. She had arrived, and the camp was taking notice. The sun hung high and unforgiving over the training camp as Emma Carter stood at the firing range, her stance steady, the weight of the rifle a familiar comfort in her hands. Around her, the other recruits shifted nervously, some boasting loudly about their shooting skills, others quietly doubting their own. Emma's focus, however, was unshaken, a sharp contrast to the restless energy that buzzed through the ranks. Her first few shots hit the target dead center, the crisp sound of each bullet punctuating the morning air. The instructors watched closely, their expressions unreadable, but their attention unmistakably fixed on her. Lieutenant Ramirez, standing nearby, exchanged a glance with Captain Mitchell, a subtle nod passing between them, a quiet acknowledgement of Emma's skill. Whispers began to spread among the recruits. "Did you see Carter's shots? Bullseye every time. No way, she's just some nobody." The skepticism that had clung to her like a shadow was beginning to fade, replaced by curiosity and even admiration. During a brief pause, Lena, a fellow recruit with a warm smile and approachable demeanor, approached Emma cautiously. She extended a water bottle, her gesture simple but significant in the harsh environment. "Here, you might need this," Lena said softly. Emma accepted the bottle with a nod, the faintest hint of gratitude flickering across her face. It was the first act of kindness she had received since arriving, and it marked a subtle shift in the camp's social landscape. As the day progressed, the rumors about Emma's past began to circulate more freely. Trainees speculated about her background, whispers of previous military experience, specialized training, even covert operations. None had concrete evidence, but the precision and calm she displayed lent weight to the theories. Corporal Davis, nursing bruised pride from earlier encounters, scoffed loudly during a break. "She's got tricks up her sleeve, that's for sure. Bet she's hiding something." His words were met with mixed reactions. Some recruits nodded in agreement, while others eyed him warily. Despite the growing attention, Emma maintained her composed facade. She neither confirmed nor denied the speculation, allowing the mystery to build naturally. Her silence became a shield and a statement, strength and restraint. The afternoon brought a navigation drill deep into the surrounding forest, a test of endurance, memory, and tactical acumen. Emma moved with quiet confidence, her steps sure and deliberate as she led a small group through the dense underbrush. Her familiarity with the terrain and natural instincts guided them efficiently, even as others faltered or hesitated. Kyle Martinez, a brash recruit known for his cocky attitude, attempted to undermine her leadership. "Are you sure you know where you're going, Carter? Don't get us lost out here." His tone was mocking, meant to provoke doubt. Emma met his challenge without anger, her voice calm and steady. "Follow the map and stay focused. We'll be back on schedule." Her assurance had an effect. The group settled into a rhythm, their trust in her growing despite initial reservations. As the sun dipped low, casting long shadows over the camp, the atmosphere had shifted noticeably. The mocking whispers that had once surrounded Emma were replaced by hushed discussions filled with respect and curiosity. Her quiet perseverance was breaking down walls, reshaping perceptions. In the mess hall that evening, Emma sat with Lena and a small group of recruits who had begun to see her in a new light. The camaraderie was tentative but genuine, a fragile bond forged through shared trials and unspoken understanding. Sergeant Blake observed from a distance, his expression darkening. The control he once wielded over the group was slipping, challenged by the very recruit he had sought to belittle. His frustration simmered beneath a forced smile, a silent promise that the battle for dominance was far from over. Yet for Emma, the day's events reinforced a growing truth. Resilience and quiet strength could rewrite the rules of engagement. The camp was no longer a place of isolation, but a proving ground where hidden talents could emerge and command respect. As night fell over the training facility, Emma prepared for the challenges still to come. The whispered rumors, the tentative friendships, and the subtle shifts in power dynamics were all part of a larger game, one she was now ready to play on her own terms. The morning sun cast a pale glow over the sprawling training grounds as the recruits assembled for the day's tactical exercise, a simulated urban combat scenario designed to test teamwork, strategy, and quick decision-making. Emma Carter stood among her peers, her eyes scanning the makeshift battlefield with a calm intensity that set her apart from the usual nervous energy that rippled through the group. The exercise began with a swift command to move out. Recruits dashed between barricades, ducked behind walls and communicated in terse whispers. Emma stayed low, her every move deliberate and precise. As she navigated through the chaos, her sleeve caught on a jagged edge of a metal crate. In the brief moment it slipped upward, a glimpse of the tattoo beneath was revealed. A distinctive black emblem etched into her forearm, intricate and unmistakable. Commander Hayes, positioned nearby to oversee the exercise, caught sight of the emblem instantly. His eyes widened, a subtle shift in his usually impassive expression betraying recognition. The tattoo was not just any mark, it was the insignia of Phantom Squad, an elite and highly classified special operations unit known only to a select few within the military's highest echelons. The atmosphere shifted palpably. Recruits who had been shouting orders and exchanging jabs fell silent, their movements faltering as awareness spread like wildfire. Sergeant Blake's face drained of color, the realization hitting him with the force of a thunderclap. Corporal Davis stumbled back, his earlier confidence evaporating into disbelief. Emma noticed the change immediately. The taunts that had followed her since arrival ceased abruptly, replaced by cautious glances and whispered speculation. Her quiet persistence was suddenly reframed, not as mere determination, but as the mark of someone with a storied and formidable past. Commander Hayes stepped forward, his voice steady but carrying an unmistakable weight. "Carter, report to my quarters after this exercise." The command was brief but unequivocal, signaling a shift in her status within the camp. As the exercise resumed, Emma moved with renewed authority, her actions confident and commanding. The other recruits instinctively fell in line, their earlier derision replaced by a grudging respect that bordered on reverence. Blake and Davis, once so sure of their dominance, now found themselves on the defensive, their attempts to undermine her met with silent dismissal. The day's drills continued with Emma taking on a leadership role, guiding her team through complex maneuvers with precision. Her knowledge of tactics and combat strategy became evident as she anticipated threats and coordinated responses seamlessly. The transformation in the group dynamic was stark. Where mockery had ruled, discipline and cooperation now took hold. Later, in the dim light of Commander Hayes's quarters, Emma stood before the man who had once been a distant figure of authority. His gaze was sharp, assessing but not unkind. "Your past precedes you, Carter," he said, voice low. "Phantom Squad operatives are known for their exceptional skill and discretion. How long have you been hiding this?" Emma met his gaze steadily. "Long enough," she replied quietly. "I came here to start over, not to flaunt my history." Hayes nodded slowly. "Starting over requires trust and transparency. This camp isn't just about training new recruits. It's about building a cohesive force. Your experience is an asset, but it also sets you apart." The weight of his words settled between them. Emma understood the delicate balance she would have to maintain, embracing her past without letting it overshadow the present. Back on the training grounds, the ripple effect of her revelation continued to reshape the camp's culture. Blake's attempts to rally support against her faltered, as the recruits gravitated toward Emma's quiet strength and proven expertise. Davis found himself isolated, his earlier bravado replaced by a wary caution. Among the other trainees, whispers of Emma's true identity circulated, transforming from rumors into accepted fact. The emblem on her arm had become a symbol, not just of elite skill, but of resilience and hidden potential. As evening descended, Emma stood alone beneath the fading light, her tattoo concealed once more beneath her sleeve. The secret she carried was both a shield and a beacon, marking her as different yet connected to a legacy of excellence. The camp had changed in subtle but profound ways. Where once there had been mockery and doubt, now there was respect and cautious admiration. Emma Carter was no longer just the quiet recruit. She was a force emerging from the shadows, poised to lead and inspire. And as the stars began to twinkle overhead, the weight of her past settled into the present, a reminder that some secrets once revealed could alter the course of everything to come. Commander Hayes's voice resonated through the training yard, firm and commanding as he addressed the gathered recruits. Effective immediately, Emma Carter will serve as a peer instructor for advanced combat drills. The words hung in the air, shifting the dynamics of the camp like a sudden gust that rearranged a once rigid formation. The murmurs rippled through the ranks, some filled with surprise, others tinged with grudging respect. Sergeant Blake's scowl deepened, his posture stiffening as the reality of Emma's new role settled in. Corporal Davis exchanged uneasy glances, the defiance that had fueled his earlier taunts now tempered by a wary understanding. Emma stood tall, the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders but met with unwavering resolve. The emblem on her forearm, now hidden beneath her sleeve, symbolized not just her past but the authority she wielded in this moment. She was no longer the silent recruit on the margins. She was an instructor, a leader. The first advanced combat drill unfolded under Emma's watchful eye. The recruits moved through simulated urban environments, executing tactical maneuvers with precision and urgency. Emma's instructions were clear, concise, delivered with a calm authority that commanded attention without raising her voice. "Cover your flanks," she directed, her gaze sharp as she observed the squad's movements. "Maintain communication. Anticipate the unexpected." Her words were not just commands, they were lessons distilled from experience, each syllable carrying the weight of countless missions and hard-earned knowledge. The trainees responded, their previous skepticism giving way to focused cooperation. Emma's leadership transformed the chaos of the exercise into a coordinated symphony of action. Where once there had been hesitation, now there was confidence. Where doubt had lingered, trust began to take root. Sergeant Blake, unable to conceal his frustration, challenged her authority during a momentary pause. "You think you're better than us, Carter? Don't forget where you came from." His tone was laced with bitterness, an attempt to undermine the respect she had earned. Emma met his gaze steadily, unflinching. "This isn't about being better. It's about being prepared. If you focus on that, you'll do fine." Her words cut through the tension, leaving Blake without a retort. The drill resumed, and Emma's strategic guidance became increasingly evident. She anticipated moves, corrected errors before they escalated, and adapted to the fluidity of the scenario with ease. The recruits followed her lead, their trust in her growing with every successful maneuver. Corporal Davis's defiance reached its breaking point during a simulated breach. In a moment of reckless impatience, he charged ahead without cover, triggering a simulated alarm and forcing the team into a compromised position. The error was immediate and costly. Emma didn't hesitate. She moved swiftly to contain the mistake, directing the others to regroup and adapt. "Control your impulses," she commanded, her voice firm but measured. "Situational awareness saves lives." The consequences for Davis were swift. Commander Hayes summoned him for a reprimand, emphasizing the importance of discipline and teamwork. The episode served as a stark reminder to the entire camp that defiance and recklessness had no place in their ranks. Meanwhile, the recruits' attitudes continued to evolve. The transformation was subtle but undeniable, the camp's culture shifting from one of hierarchy enforced by intimidation to one built on mutual respect and shared purpose. Emma's presence acted as a catalyst, inspiring others to rise above petty rivalries and focus on collective strength. Among the trainees, Lena emerged as a vocal supporter of Emma's leadership. Her encouragement and open-mindedness helped bridge gaps within the group, fostering an environment where resilience and humility were valued. The camaraderie that blossomed around Emma was a testament to the power of quiet determination. As days passed, Emma's role as peer instructor expanded. She led complex simulated missions, coordinating teams with precision and calm under pressure. Her ability to remain composed in the face of uncertainty became a model for others, demonstrating that true strength often lay in measured control rather than loud bravado. In one particularly challenging exercise, Emma orchestrated a nighttime infiltration scenario. The recruits moved silently through the darkness, relying on whispered commands and trust in one another. Emma's leadership was pivotal, her planning meticulous, her execution flawless. The successful completion of the mission earned praise from instructors and peers alike. It marked a turning point, solidifying Emma's position not just as a skilled operative, but as a respected leader capable of guiding others through the most demanding situations. Sergeant Blake's resistance softened, replaced by a grudging acknowledgement of Emma's capabilities. The former bullies found their influence waning as the camp rallied around the new standard she embodied. In quiet moments, Emma reflected on the journey from silent outsider to authoritative instructor. The path had been fraught with challenges, but each obstacle had forged her resolve stronger. The emblem she bore was no longer just a secret mark of past achievements. It was a symbol of transformation and leadership. As the camp settled into a new rhythm, the echoes of Emma's influence resonated beyond the drills and exercises. The culture was shifting, the lessons of respect, discipline, and perseverance taking root in the hearts of the recruits. Emma Carter stood at the center of this change, no longer a recruit to be underestimated, but a beacon of strength and humility, leading by example and inspiring those around her to rise to their fullest potential. The morning briefing was unusually tense, the air thick with a charged silence that spread among the recruits like a gathering storm. Sergeant Blake and Corporal Davis stood off to the side, their faces tight with frustration and resignation. The consequences of their earlier actions had finally caught up with them, and the camp's leadership was determined that the culture of bullying and disrespect would no longer be tolerated. Commander Hayes addressed the group with a steely calm that brooked no dissent. "Recent behavior from certain individuals has been brought to my attention," he began, his gaze sweeping the assembly. "Disciplinary measures will be enforced to maintain the integrity and cohesion of this unit. Sergeant Blake and Corporal Davis will face formal reprimands and a temporary suspension from training activities." A hushed murmur rippled through the recruits. The news was unexpected, yet it carried a sense of justice long overdue. Blake's jaw clenched, his usual swagger stripped away under the weight of official sanction. Davis shifted uneasily, the defiance that had once fueled him now muted by the reality of consequences. Emma Carter stood among her peers, observing the scene with a quiet satisfaction that was neither boastful nor gloating. The reckoning was not about personal victory but about restoring respect and order within the camp. Her own journey had been shaped by resilience and humility, qualities that now resonated more deeply within the group. The disciplinary actions sent a clear message. The camp was evolving. The old hierarchy, built on intimidation and exclusion, was giving way to a new standard where mutual respect and accountability were paramount. The shift was palpable, altering the camp's atmosphere from one of tension and division to cautious optimism. In the days that followed, the culture among the recruits began to change in subtle but meaningful ways. Mockery gave way to cooperation. Suspicion softened into camaraderie. The barriers that had once isolated Emma dissolved as others recognized the strength in her steadfastness. Lena emerged as a key figure in this transformation, her warmth and openness bridging gaps between recruits who had previously kept to themselves. She sought out Emma regularly, offering encouragement and support that rippled through the group. Together, they fostered an environment where perseverance and humility were celebrated, rather than scorned. Training sessions became more collaborative, with recruits actively sharing strategies and offering assistance. The competitive edge remained, but it was tempered by a shared commitment to growth and unity. Emma's example as a quiet yet unwavering leader inspired others to push beyond their limitations. During physical drills, Emma's steady determination was often a beacon for those struggling to keep pace. Her unassuming presence encouraged recruits to focus on their own progress, rather than external judgments. The camp's morale improved, and with it the overall performance of the unit. Instructors took note of the positive shift. Lieutenant Ramirez remarked to her colleagues, "The recruits are responding well to the change in leadership dynamics. It's fostering a healthier, more effective training environment." Emma herself remained focused on the mission, her personal goals intertwined with the collective success of the camp. She understood that true strength was not just about individual skill but about elevating those around her. As weeks passed, the bonds among recruits solidified. Trust replaced suspicion, and respect supplanted ridicule. The camp, once fragmented by cliques and conflicts, began to feel like a cohesive team, a reflection of the ideals it sought to instill. Sergeant Blake and Corporal Davis, relegated to the sidelines during their suspension, watched this transformation with a mixture of bitterness and begrudging acknowledgement. The power they once wielded had eroded, their influence diminished by the very changes they had resisted. Emma's quiet perseverance had become a catalyst for growth, reshaping not only her own trajectory, but the culture of the entire training facility. Her resilience and humility served as a model, demonstrating that leadership was not about dominance but about integrity and strength of character. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Emma and Lena sat together near the camp's perimeter, the quiet hum of activity around them a testament to the day's labors. Lena smiled warmly, her eyes reflecting a newfound confidence. "You've changed everything, Emma. We're not just surviving here anymore. We're growing." Emma nodded, a soft smile touching her lips. "It's not just me. It's all of us. Together we're stronger." The sentiment echoed in the air, a promise of continued growth and unity. The camp was no longer a place defined by mockery and exclusion, but a proving ground where resilience, humility, and mutual respect forged a new legacy. In that moment, beneath the fading light, Emma felt the weight of her journey, one marked by trials and triumphs, setbacks and breakthroughs. The path ahead remained challenging, but the foundation was solid, built on the enduring power of quiet strength and shared purpose. The night was thick with shadows as Emma Carter sat alone in the dimly lit common room of the training camp, the hum of distant voices and muffled footsteps, a faint backdrop to the storm of thoughts swirling in her mind. The mask of calm she wore throughout the day slipped briefly, revealing the weight of a past she had long tried to leave behind. A secure line on a burner phone vibrated silently on the table before her. The screen displayed a name she hadn't heard in years: Colonel Mason. The man who had once been her commanding officer in Phantom Squad, the elite unit whose emblem she bore, was reaching out after a period of silence that had felt like exile. Her fingers hovered over the device, hesitating. The covert world she'd escaped was calling her back, a summons she both feared and understood all too well. The message was brief but urgent. "New mission. High risk. Your skills needed. Discretion paramount. Details to follow." Emma's heart tightened. The quiet life she had carved for herself in the training camp was about to fracture. The emblem hidden beneath her sleeve was more than a symbol. It was a tether to a shadowed existence she had tried to bury beneath layers of discipline and determination. She recalled the moments when her past had brushed against the present, the recognition from Commander Hayes, the shifting attitudes of the recruits, the grudging respect that had slowly replaced mockery. Yet none of that could shield her from the reality now unfolding. Phantom Squad was a ghost in the military's clandestine operations, tasked with missions so sensitive they existed only in whispers. Emma's connection to the unit was a secret she had guarded fiercely, sharing it with no one, not even those who had come to respect her at the camp. The message from Mason signaled a return to that world, a call to engage in a mission coded as Operation Nightfall. The details were scarce, but the implications were clear. Danger, subterfuge, and the kind of stakes that left no room for error. Emma's mind raced through the possibilities. Could she refuse? Could she remain in the relative safety of the training camp, building a new life and identity? The answer was no. Loyalty, duty, and the unspoken bond with her former squad pulled her inexorably forward. She reached for a secure laptop, fingers typing a coded response. Received. Awaiting further instructions. Ready. The minutes stretched as she waited, each one laden with tension. Finally, an encrypted file downloaded. A dossier outlining the mission's parameters. A rogue faction threatening national security, a high-value target, and a window of opportunity closing fast. Emma absorbed the information with practiced efficiency. Her training at the camp had honed her skills, but this was a different arena altogether. A shadow war fought in silence and secrecy. The weight of responsibility settled heavily. She was no longer just a recruit or an instructor. She was a key player in a deadly game where lives hung in balance and failure was not an option. As dawn approached, Emma packed a small bag, minimal gear, essentials only. She moved with the quiet precision of a seasoned operative, every action deliberate. The recruits who had come to know her as a steady presence would never suspect the dual life she led. Before departing, she paused at the camp's edge, looking back at the barracks bathed in early morning light. The friendships forged, the respect earned, they were part of her now, but the path ahead demanded sacrifice. Commander Hayes's earlier words echoed in her mind. "Your experience is an asset, but it also sets you apart." Now, more than ever, those words resonated with truth. The emblem beneath her sleeve was a reminder of who she was and what she had pledged to do. Emma Carter, once the quiet recruit underestimated by all, was stepping into the shadows once more. The mission awaited, and with it, the challenges that would test every ounce of her skill, resolve, and courage. The life she had built at the camp was but a prelude to the storm ahead, a storm she was prepared to face head-on. The dawn light filtered through the narrow window of the small, secured room where Emma Carter sat alone, the soft hum of electronics and encrypted communications filling the silence. Before her lay a detailed map of the operation zone, peppered with coordinates, surveillance data, and potential threat markers. The mission briefing played again on a muted screen, the voice calm but unyielding, laying out the stakes with clinical precision. Emma's fingers traced the routes and safe zones, committing every detail to memory. The mental preparation was as vital as the physical. Every nuance, every contingency drilled into her mind with relentless focus. The countless hours of training at the camp, where discipline and precision were cultivated, now served as the foundation for the high-stakes operation looming ahead. She closed her eyes briefly, inhaling deeply. The lessons learned, the endurance, the tactical acumen, the unshakable composure, were all tools she would wield in the field. Unlike the structured drills of the training camp, this mission promised unpredictability and danger, demanding a balance of calculated risk and calm adaptability. Her past and present converged in this moment. The quiet recruit who had endured ridicule and doubt had transformed into an operative ready to navigate the shadows with lethal expertise. The transition was seamless in action but profound in meaning. Emma reviewed her equipment meticulously, ensuring each piece was in place: communication devices, weaponry, surveillance gear, all calibrated for precision. The weight of the gear was familiar, comforting even, a tangible link to the skills honed over years of covert missions and rigorous training. A secure channel crackled to life, and Colonel Mason's voice came through. "Status report. Ready for deployment," Emma responded, her tone steady, betraying none of the tension beneath. "Remember, discretion is paramount. The success of Operation Nightfall depends on your ability to remain unseen and untraceable. Trust your instincts." Emma nodded, though unseen, acknowledging the gravity of the words. Trusting her instincts had been the cornerstone of her survival and success in Phantom Squad's most perilous operations. As the hours edged closer to deployment, Emma reflected briefly on the path that had brought her here, the quiet resilience that had carried her through basic training, the respect earned through steady leadership, and the unspoken bond with those who had believed in her potential. The contrast between the structured environment of the camp and the fluid dangers of covert operations was stark. Yet both demanded the same qualities: discipline, focus, and an unwavering commitment to the mission. She steeled herself, the calm exterior masking the fierce determination within. The operation ahead would test every facet of her training, every ounce of her resolve. With final checks complete, Emma stood, the weight of responsibility heavy but embraced. The quiet recruit was now a lethal operative, poised to face the shadows with skill and courage forged in both the training yard and the clandestine world beyond. As the first light of morning bathed the camp in a soft glow, Emma stepped into the unknown, ready to confront whatever challenges awaited with the steady heart and sharp mind that had become her signature. The training camp was quieter now, its usual hum replaced by a reflective stillness that seemed to settle over the grounds like a gentle fog. The recruits moved with a different energy, calmer, more focused, as if the lessons learned from Emma Carter's journey had seeped into the very fabric of their experience. Emma herself was absent, her presence now a memory etched into the daily rhythms of the camp. Her story had become legend among the recruits and instructors alike, a powerful testament to the dangers of underestimating quiet strength and the transformative power of perseverance. Whispers of her rise from the overlooked newcomer to a respected leader had spread beyond the camp's boundaries, inspiring a shift in how recruits were viewed and treated. Diversity in backgrounds and hidden talents were no longer obstacles but celebrated assets, enriching the unit's collective capability. The culture had evolved. Mockery and exclusion had given way to mentorship and collaboration. The camp embraced this new ethos, recognizing that true strength often lay beneath a calm exterior, waiting for the right moment to emerge. Instructors recounted Emma's example during training sessions, emphasizing the importance of humility, resilience, and focus. Her journey became a fixture in the curriculum, a living lesson against snap judgments and the power of quiet determination. Her legacy was also a warning to those who had once wielded power through intimidation. Lance Morrison and Madison Brooks, names once synonymous with derision, had faced their own reckonings. Lance's disciplinary actions were well documented, his reputation tarnished by the viral spread of his mockery. Madison's fall from grace was swift, her credibility eroded by the very culture she had perpetuated. Yet, beyond the consequences, the camp had learned a deeper lesson. Strength is not always loud, and leadership is not always visible at first glance. Months after Emma's departure, a secure call reached her. The familiar code phrase "Code Phoenix" cutting through the static. It was a summons back into the shadows, a reminder that her past was never far behind. As she prepared for the next mission, the lessons of the training camp resonated within her. A foundation of resilience, humility, and unwavering resolve. The journey had transformed her, equipping her not just to survive but to lead in the most perilous of arenas. Emma Carter, once underestimated and overlooked, was now a force to be reckoned with. A lethal operative poised to face the challenges ahead with the quiet strength that had defined her from the very beginning.